Quite often here on Aliens Explored, Neil and I will discuss prominent figures in the UFO community, such as investigators or researchers. But never have we gone into such detail for a UFO debunker, despite often referring to them in our relaying of UFO encounters and their aftermath. We thought it was time to redress that, so tonight we delve into the life, background and possible motivations of the much mentioned Philip J Klass.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners and welcome back to another episode of Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast looking at all things to do with those mysterious lights in the sky and those mysterious beings who encounter you on the ground and maybe take you off somewhere and do something to you.
The police.
Oh yeah, and without actually identifying themselves properly. I'm one of your hosts, Neil Kelly.
And I'm your other host, Stu Jackson. Reminds me of that old joke, I hate people that take drugs. Customs, police. Oh dear. How are you doing, Neil?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yes. Not bad at all. You were just mentioning off air that you might be returning to your... can we talk about it?
Yes, we can. Yeah, well, I don't think anyone... Actually, I might have recruited a few listeners from that job. Yes, might be going back to Monopoly Life Size. I've got a meeting with some directors on Monday the 18th. They're going to run me through what the job is now compared to what it was, because the job has changed. With a view to me sort of filling in from time to time, but yeah, I don't particularly want to go back to the full-time basis I was doing before because it kind of excludes so much else. Not least the work-life balance, but also precludes any other kind of work. And yeah, but I expect once I've got my feet under the table, the work will start rolling in. I've been in this situation before. You start off, oh yes, I can cover just Saturdays. Yes, don't worry about that. Oh, do you think you could do Friday as well? And possibly Thursday. Yeah, that's how it it builds up. So I'm confident.
It does build up, and in there I can see a danger because as actors, it is really difficult for us to turn down work. So saying you want to go back part-time, I'm going to make a prediction now. I can see you ending up doing just as many hours as you did before.
Well, the thing before was that when I was on contract and I was PAYE, I was paid as an employee, I was expected to be there. There was no scope for saying, sorry, I can't work next Thursday because I've got another job. That just wasn't possible. But working as a contract, working on as a freelancer, and just paid as a freelancer. Yeah, I'm hoping that I would be able to say, sorry, can't do Wednesday and Thursday next week. I'm doing something else, and they'd say, oh, fine, because I'm just there as the stand-in.
Right. Well, hopefully it will all work out the way you want it to. Now, today's subject is quite an interesting one. We've covered various people in ufology before now. Some of whom we like, some of us don't like at all.
And this is someone whose name has cropped up before in
Yes.
previous discussions.
Well, I think it's important that we do cover this side of things. So, famous skeptic and active debunker, Philip J Klass. Now, he passed away, aged 85. Was it 18 years ago now?
18 years ago, yeah.
It's 2005, 18 years. So someone born in 2005 can legally drink now. That is terrifying.
In this country, I mean, most of our listeners are in the United States where they absolutely can't. But
yeah. But yeah, that is terrifying.
Yeah, but actually, our American listeners can legally own a gun.
That's also terrifying.
Yeah, you might not be able to drink, but you can own a gun. So there we go. Now, Philip J Klass, he's come up before as a debunker. I mean, his scientific credentials are fairly impressive. What's his degree in? It was
electronics.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he worked for General Electric as an engineer in aviation electronics, avionics, and became a journalist. Went and worked for Aviation Week and Space Technology, and became the senior editor of for 34 years.
Yeah,
just looking to see what his degree was in.
His degree
graduated from Iowa State College in 1941, so probably before America entered the Second World War, with a BSc, a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering. So he's a guy.
Electronics.
He's a scientist. This is someone who has a logical mind, right? Isn't it?
He's an engineer. I don't know as I would use the word scientist. I probably really just pissed off a load of our engineering listeners. But no, I think scientist would be stretching it somewhat. He's an engineer. And engineers famously do think in straight lines, in logical, because that's part of the job. Because this was back when engineering meant engineering, and now if you're in human resources, you're in interpersonal engineering, and they use engineering for everything now. Oh, don't get me started. Back when I was
as you say, engineering works in he's dealing with precise things, isn't he? The precise measurement of very measurable things, and I would imagine wouldn't have the kind of mind that would be very open to speculating about things based on very little information at all.
Well, you say that. The first thing he did when he got into ufology was came up with some batshit crazy theories that were utterly unprovable.
Okay.
So he started investigating claims back in 1966 around Exeter, New Hampshire. And he said that the UFOs that people were seeing were caused by ball lightning or plasma from nearby power lines. So he's basically, and I think there is a quote that someone said, he's replaced one unsubstantiated theory with another unsubstantiated theory.
I mean, he did note that many of these. This was in Exeter, wasn't it, in New Hampshire? He noted that many of the UFO incidents took place close to high power electric lines. I don't know how close that would have to be. So yeah, that's when he made this complete leap in the dark about a previously unknown type of plasma or ball lightning that might have come from these power lines or transformers.
Yeah,
that
so
would have caused
he is a person who would make these unsubstantiated theoretical
I mean, it looks like he's reaching, he's casting around for some explanation that is terrestrial, even though he can't come up with one. He's speculated about something that, I suppose, to him sounds more likely. And he argued that they could explain most or all UFOs and even cases of alleged alien abduction.
Yes, by ball lightning.
Yeah.
He believed that people who thought they... And he famously said that only around 97-98% of people who claim to have UFO encounters were intelligent, rational people who... They weren't lying. It was only 2 or 3%, he said, of UFO reports that were fraudulent. So he is saying that these rational, intelligent people were claiming that they had been abducted by aliens because of ball lightning. I'm really open to hearing how you make that connection.
Well, I mean, if you've been electrocuted and you wake up hours later, and it's messed with your brain a bit, yeah, and the last thing you remember is seeing these lights in the sky and thinking, oh, that looks like a UFO. And the next thing you know, you wake up on the ground burned. Who knows what's going to go through your head? I mean, he, in the late 1960s, allegedly, Klass very quietly abandoned this plasma theory. It was getting too much heat. But then just said that all UFO sightings could be explained as misidentification of normal phenomena, clouds, stars, comets, aircraft.
I've got to ask, did you intend that pun?
Sorry?
Did you intend that pun?
Which one was that?
Obviously
not.
The theory on plasma was getting too much heat.
And light.
Sorry. That tickled me anyway.
But, you know, you can imagine that he's trying to have a conversation. He's trying to debunk UFOs. But he's just being met by this constant barrage of debunking his plasma theory. You know, he can't get a word in edgeways. So I think, okay, forget about the plasma. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about these UFOs. So, yeah, he thought that most people were... You know, they genuinely thought they'd seen something and had been probably persuaded either by what they'd learned beforehand or had been told afterwards that they'd seen a UFO. Now there was one guy. Klass has argued in favour of hoaxes pretty much more than anyone else, with very little evidence. Apparently he made unsubstantiated charges of drug smuggling against a pilot called Frederick Valentish, who disappeared in 1978 after claiming a strange UFO was flying near his plane. So suddenly out of nowhere he said, oh yeah, this guy was smuggling drugs. He made that claim in 1992, so it's not like, you know... So he has a... They say you should never speak ill of the dead, but I'm sorry. To me, this guy Klass is a nasty, or was rather, a nasty piece of work. That wasn't the first time he had done smear campaigns or ad hominem attacks. And yeah, the 1992, that was a completely... He had no evidence, no indications whatsoever that pilot, Australian pilot, wasn't he? No indication that he was smuggling drugs. It's an active. He made shit up to discredit people. The first record I've got of him trying to do this was back in the 60s, so you know it was a career-wide tactic of his. There was a physicist called James E. McDonald's, who, as well as being a physicist and a respected physicist, as well as doing that, he also investigated UFOs. And Klass wrote to his university
and said, basically, like, why, like, how can you have someone on your staff investigating UFOs? This is totally ridiculous. You should cut his funding completely and instant. Now, fortunately, they didn't. But what a piece of shit.
I mean, it seems to me like he's playing to a certain crowd. You know, he had this. It was described as a crusader's zeal for what seems right. It's not enough that he was an engineer who was prepared to say, "Well, I don't know about any of this. There's no evidence to back this up." But it would be like a shock jock now, or a podcaster, who he's got his followers who would delight in him saying these, accusing these people of all sorts of things, and he would enjoy the distress that it caused to those people. And his followers would enjoy the distress that it was caused.
Yes, it puts me in. I'm going to go a little bit political here, so brace yourselves, listeners. But it puts me in mind of the followers of the likes of Trump over in the United States and Nigel Farage here in the UK. People who say, "Oh, you just don't like it because he says how it is." No, he's saying appalling, inhumane things.
Yeah.
Don't like it because it's the way it is. It is not the way it is, for a start, and it's just appalling and nasty and small-minded and petty and right. Anyway,
in fact, that's probably part of the reason why Klass spent much of his adult life as a loner. He only married at the age of 60. Yeah. His wife. And had a son, and they'd escaped from communist Bulgaria in 1973. And I guess they needed some sort of sponsor, and he thought, this is the only way I can get a wife.
Oh, I'm not gonna go down that route because that's kind of too close to Klass's tactics. The ad hominem, like attacking personally because of his his belief. But I mean, all sorts of people are single. I'm 50 years old and single, so
Yeah, but you haven't been single all your life. I'm painting a picture of a nasty, venom, spite-filled person who's just a very objectionable person to the extent that no, of course he's not married.
There are plenty of nasty, venomous, spite-filled people who are married. So
equally spiteful, venomous people. Yeah,
I wouldn't. Yeah, I just wouldn't go down that route, to be honest. But he's nasty enough as it is. There's another one, Stanton Friedman, famous ufologist, who brought a huge level of, I think, dignity and rationalism to ufology and his UFO investigations. Stanton Friedman was in the process of moving to Canada, and Philip J Klass wrote to the Canadian government to say, you don't want to let this guy into your country. He'll claim you're hiding UFOs, and I mean, they didn't have a formal classification for UFOs at the time. They just said, well, it's either a meteorite or it's not a meteorite. It was like, Friedman will claim that you're subverting the truth, and what a dick. He tried to stop Stanton Friedman from being able to move to Canada. What? Oh yeah, I'm not a fan. Does it show?
Yeah, it does show. Yeah. So just reading about this business with Friedman and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He would do. Yeah, he was a nasty piece of work.
However,
it did backfire. Apparently, Klass's letter prompted a major records relocation in Canada, and actually made Friedman's research a lot easier than it would have been before.
Yes, it did. So that was that's where it backfired on him greatly. But it's got to be said, Philip J Klass is also a person who kind of, well, I suppose in a way it's also backfired. He brought light to a lot of UFO cases that otherwise would have been they'd have been like known about in quite obscure circles, and he brought quite a lot to public attention. So I suppose we have to thank him for that, and also by his means, by the way in which he tried to debunk, and particularly the personal attacks on people in ufology, I think lends more credibility to those people. The fact he would stoop to, writing letters to physicists, employers like, oh, you need to cut his funding. The fact he would stoop to that sort of underhanded tactic means he had no argument against the actual claims being made. If that's the classic ad hominem trait, isn't it? You get it. I get it. Huge amount with online trolls, particularly in the crop circle community. If you can't attack the person's position, you attack that, and that's one of the reasons I didn't mean to sort of stump all over you, but let's not go down that route, because attacking the person instead of the policy. I get very so we both know I'm like, neither of us are fans of Boris Johnson. That's no secret.
That's a reasonable position to...
I think it's a very reasonable position to say, but I get really angry and upset when people start saying, oh, look at Boris Johnson, oh, look at how fat he is. Like, excuse me? Attack his policies, attack his the job he does, not the person. Because when you when someone attacks Boris Johnson for being overweight, they're attacking me as well. So, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
I get very the whole ad hominem. It's the same with Donald Trump. People talk about his small. I have small hands. So when I hear people, oh, look at him, he's got small hands, you can't take him seriously. I don't know why I'm doing a Yorkshire accent for the Americans, but look at him, he's got small hands. That's not he's not a real man. Well, no, I mean, fuck you. Yeah. Oh, God, I feel like I've vented.
Yeah. But, in terms of Friedman did do the things that Klass said he was going to do. He did accuse the Canadian government of covering up information.
Yeah.
He charged that two government-sponsored investigative bodies had covered up UFO information, and that the government had hidden or destroyed further information.
Yeah.
Klass also attacked someone else who's come up in a previous podcast, J. Allen Hynek.
Yes.
He called the editor of the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin, derided a publication of an article by Hynek called The UFO Mystery, accused the FBI of perpetuating a hoax, and referred to Hynek as a fraud. And the editor defended Hynek as a widely respected scientist affiliated with a leading university, to which Klass apparently replied, he won't be for long. But yeah. He followed up the letter with to the Law Enforcement Bulletin offering a rebuttal article, but they just said no.
Well, okay, let's talk about his famous $10,000 reward.
Yeah, now
so
he's certainly putting his money where his mouth is.
Sort. I would say he's placing a gamble, but it's a fairly safe gamble. And it would be so. Some people have theorised that Klass was in fact working for the government in doing this debunking, and it's a conspiracy theory. But if that were the case, he would have privileged knowledge that indeed nobody was going to come up with any evidence. So he made this $10,000 offer that if anyone gave him a piece of an actual spacecraft that was obviously of extraterrestrial origin, determined specifically by the United States National Academy of Sciences, or an actual alien being born on another planet to Earth, live, not dead, live, brought them before the General Assembly of the United Nations, then
or on a national television program.
Yeah.
He would accept other evidence as well, which conclusively proves that the Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial spacecraft in the 20th century. And the deal was, if you accept the offer, you have to pay Klass $100 a year for a maximum of 10 years. Each year, none of these things occur. If one of these things occurs, he'll give you 10 grand. That was his offer. It was specifically declined by a number of people. One person entered into it, accepted the terms in 1969, but made 2 annual payments of $100, then wrongly claimed the prize. When it was pointed out that his claim didn't meet any of the conditions, the man let the agreement lapse. So this is related. Sorry?
He's saying, if you pay me $100 a year, then I will allow you to present irrefutable evidence, and if you provide that evidence within 10 years, so that's...
not necessarily you. Anyone can get in touch and say, okay, I accept the deal, I will pay you $100 a year, we'll sign the contract, and if any of these things happen, a crashed spacecraft is presented, or a being appears before the General Assembly of the UN or on TV, I'll give you 10 grand. That's the deal. That's the quid pro quo. You're going to pay me.
No. In order to enter into this agreement where he would pay the $10,000, you had to have the agreement with him where you would pay him $100 a year.
Yeah,
first.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So but you don't have to produce the evidence as long as you've entered this deal and you're paying him $100 a year.
Yes.
If the US government suddenly says, well, here's actually an extraterrestrial being, he's been with us for years, and here he is on national television, Klass will give you 10 grand. That was the deal. You don't personally have to produce the evidence.
No. I think he was onto a fairly safe bet with that.
And this is related to Klass's UFO curse.
The UFO curse, yes.
In his statement, I think it was in his I've got to read this out. The last will and testament of Philip J Klass. To ufologists who publicly criticise me, or who even think unkind thoughts about me in private, I do hereby leave and bequeath the UFO curse. Listen in, Stu, because this applies to you. No matter how long no matter how long you live, you will never know any more about UFOs than you know today. You will never know any more about what UFOs really are or where they come from. You will never know any more about what the US government really knows about UFOs than you know today. As you lie on your own deathbed, you will be as mystified about UFOs as you are today, and you will remember this curse.
So that would apply to both of us from this podcast recording.
It would, yeah. I mean, I'm not as much of a believer as you, but I have publicly criticised him now, and I've thought unkind thoughts about him.
I've definitely thought unkind thoughts about him. But I'm also going to say, obviously, that's a load of bollocks, because in the last year we have learnt more about UFOs than we knew beforehand. And this UFO curse was first published in 1983.
I'm not convinced about that. fine if he doesn't believe that we've had UFOs come to this planet. I'm prepared to go along with that. I haven't been presented with enough evidence to accept, yes, we definitely have been visited. I don't think the US government has any contact with, has cooperated with extraterrestrial. I'm with Klass on that, but I'm not going to attack people who say otherwise. I'm not going to try and destroy their reputations. Someone tells me they've seen something that they can't explain. Well, obviously I can't explain it either, can I? I saw this light in the sky and this thing came down, this being stepped out, and I don't really know what it was. Well, that's what you say you saw. Obviously, you've got no evidence of it. You all you can show me is maybe at the best some grainy film or something that might look like that. But okay, I'm not entirely convinced. But okay, you say you saw what you saw. I don't know why you're saying it. Maybe you've got your own ulterior motives, like those kids we were talking about last week in Zimbabwe, who told this story about this UFO that they'd seen come down and alien beings visit them at school. Maybe it did happen. I don't believe it did. I don't know why they would have said so if it didn't. Why they would have made something up like that. But kids do make things up. No, it's the viciousness with which he's attacked anyone who's even studying anything to do with ufology. He's a nasty piece of work, and I brought the curse down on me.
Well, I think his alleged curse says everything about the man. What a petty, small-minded person he was.
But let me say, unlike you, I do think that no matter how long I live, I will not ever learn any more about UFOs than I do now. I won't know any more about what they really are, where they came from. I will never know any more about what the US government really knows than they do today. And I will die as mystified about UFOs as I am today.
But back in 1983, when this was first issued,
the curse is already on me. I know that's going to happen.
No, since 1983, your knowledge of UFOs has increased.
My knowledge of specific UFO incidents has increased. I still don't know where they're from, or I've got no explanation for them.
Okay, we now know more about what the US government really knows about UFOs thanks to the footage of things like Tic Tac and Go Fast.
Yeah, see, I'm not that convinced by those videos. I know there's something on the screen. I don't know what it is, but I'm not convinced that it's extraterrestrials.
But we know that the government has footage and is taking the subject seriously, which we didn't know before. We suspected before, but we didn't know.
Yeah, all right. But I don't think that... Yeah, I will suspect... I will know that the government is taking it more seriously, but I don't think we'll know any more about what they know than I think the curse has already applied to me. I think that's my expectation. I don't believe in curses, but I also don't believe in UFO visitations. The evidence isn't strong enough for me to come down on that side of the fence, and that's what gives us so much to talk about.
As long as you don't start attacking people like Philip J Klass did. But what do you think, listeners? What do you think of the man? Is he as nasty a piece of work as what we seem to think here? Have we missed something about him? Or perhaps do you think he's even worse than what we've said here? There are a few
or maybe
words we refrain from
saying. You got some kind of insight. You know what made him so angry and made him want to lash out at people.
Whatever it is, we want to hear from you about this. So email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube by searching Aliens Explored. All the links are below, including to our Patreon as well. So if you subscribe to our Patreon, which costs only £2 a month, that's I think about $3, is it roughly, or $2.50, something like that.
It's probably about
check it out.
$2.10 or something like that.
It's
Of our
£2
much
British
devalued
pounds.
much devalued post Brexit pound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's not,
getting off
it's
the
not,
topic there.
It's
So,
not,
go
it's
to
not
our
worth much
Patreon
more than
page.
$1 or a year. £2 isn't much more than $2 or €2.
It's not much more. So go to our Patreon page, help support us, and you get exclusive access to our Discord server. I was determined to get that out. And join us next time when, one of my favourites, we're going to be talking about the first ever recorded crop circle, the Mowing Devil of 1678.
Looking forward to that one.
Definitely. So join us for that. In the meantime, keep watching out for these people who do ad hominem attacks like internet trolls, which I'm sure Philip J Klass would have been. And of course, keep watching the series. Take care for now.
Catch you next time. Bye bye.